Hi, I wanted to have a talk to you today about this is something I've been thinking about due to a few things that have been happening in life lately that have been fairly big type of events that have made me sort of stop and look and think about this word significance. What is what is the value that I put on my life? And am I ready to live in eternity? So I want us to start in Luke chapter 12, and we're going to look from verse 16 to 21. Then he spoke a parable to them, saying, The ground of a rich man yielded plentifully, and he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I'll do this. I'll pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will store all my crops and my goods, and I'll say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, Fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you have provided? So is he who lays up treasure for himself, and he's not rich towards God. Putting this into today's terms, we could be talking about being richly blessed financially and, using it to put everything we can into a savings account with the view of having a good life later on. And really, it's not a bad thing to save your money. It's good to be good stewards with what God provides. This has got more to do with motivation, with priorities and vision. And really, what it is that's in your heart. What is it that you value? So Matthew chapter 6. And starting at verse 19. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and starting in verse 12. Now if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. If anyone's work which he has built on it endures, he's going to receive a reward. Now if anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet as through fire. And this next verse, we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 9, and that lays the foundation to what we're talking about today. Our life is like a race, and we should give attention to how we're running it. And if you're running a race, well, you're going to run with the prize in mind. So 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate, that just means exercising self-control, in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. And, should we as Christians be looking for rewards? Now, wouldn't you think that is selfish? That we're thinking about being rewarded for things in this life, but we need to start valuing what it is that God puts value on. After all, he is the one that speaks about eternal rewards. He's the one that writes about these things in these verses. He's the one that says that eternal rewards are something to aspire to, and he's offering those to us. In Luke chapter 6, he says, Blessed are you when men hate you and they exclude you and they revile you and they cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for indeed your reward is great in heaven, for in like manner their fathers did to the prophets. And see, what we're talking about is significance. You might not think that we should be too bothered about significance, but you might see it from another standpoint if you look at the other side of what that word means, because the word significance is to stand for something, to show something, to be a sign or an indication of something. But its opposite is insignificance, meaningless, trivial, unimportant. God says that we are more valuable to him than many sparrows and the flowers of the field. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel like you are living a valuable, meaningful life. God's the one that places the value on us. And that when you leave this world, you know that you've influenced this world in some way or other for good. Now, I need to make it clear, we are not talking about a successful life. We're talking about a significant one. And there is a big difference between a successful life and a significant one. See, successful life is really, when people say, oh, he's had a successful life, that's about him. He's the focus of that, isn't he? It's generally something that is promoting self. It's financial success. It's notoriety, status, power, all those sort of things. But if someone says they led a significant life, then that's someone that had the value of others at heart. And there is the difference, because the successful life is about how well can I do? What can I gather? What can I do? What fame or notoriety can I achieve? But a significant life, you contributed something. See, when you're seeking after significance, then you invest your time in things that contribute to the well-being and the advancement of others. Generosity, kindness, love, all those sort of things, those ideas that promote these concepts become the thing that matter the most. To be significant, we must be contributing something to the greater good. Do we take time to discover what truly matters to us in the long run? Or are we just living for today and just get by with what crisis pops up in the day and how we need to respond to that? How are we helping others along the way? Do we care about the well-being of others and helping them to live a fuller life? Midlife crisis is not just for non-Christians. Most of us will reach a point in our life when we start to see things from a different perspective. As you get older, you tend to sort of you look back with more of a retrospective angle. And, you start to think, what does my life mean? Have I made the most with what I've been given? What is the significance of my existence? Matthew chapter 25. And starting in verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man travelling to a far country. He called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, and to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you did deliver to me 5 talents. Look, I've gained 5 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things, and I'll make you ruler over many. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I've gained 2 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said to him, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers. And at my coming, at least I'd have received back my own with interest. Therefore, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. Do you notice that he gave to each according to his or her ability? You know, that is a really interesting point. He is not expecting more out of us than we are able to do. He's given us the right amount. He's given us as much as we are able to use. He expects an increase in what he's given us. Like, remember, we're talking about the kingdom of heaven here, and the kingdom of heaven is about multiplication, getting a return on your investment. It's about reaping and sowing, watching, waiting, and being, it's also like being expectant. We're not just living for the here and now. We are looking for something coming, and we're watching and we're waiting and we're being ready to meet him. You know, there is an implication of our faithfulness to his purposes being tested. How faithful are we to his purposes? A day of accounting, which will determine how we spend eternity. You know, it's not selfish to plan for eternity because God expects us to do that. So what about the servant who stuck that talent in the ground? He was judged to be wicked and lazy. Now, he still had the 1 talent, but there was no increase, and that was not considered to be good enough. If we are not good stewards, what we have might even be taken away from us. That's a really interesting point. We remember he's given us as much as he knows we should be able to use. If we were just meant to live day to day in crisis management, that type of living, then why did Jesus bother about the fact that they just stuck that talent in the ground? Not even in the bank to get a return on the investment. You know, the fact is, it's normal for us as humans to want significance, no matter what that might mean to each one of us. It will look different. Every one of us is called to a different path. In fact, God was looking for significance or value in what they'd done while he was gone. The time for investing is now. Don't wait till tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. This is the time to start looking for those opportunities and asking God for those opportunities. And you do not have to be financially rich to do it, which is a good thing. There's this quote I like by Bruce Wilkinson, and he says, "Every day is a new opportunity to discover what eternal business might be lurking in the ordinary business of being human." I'll read that again. Every day is a new opportunity to discover what eternal business might be lurking in the ordinary business of being human. Let's not worry about our failures of yesterday, our failures of last week or last year or whatever. Let's just see today as a new opportunity. There are new opportunities for us to live wisely. Teach us, Lord, to number our days, that we can use them wisely. Ephesians chapter 5. Starting in verse 15, he says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time." Redeem the time. Make good use of the time that's been given you, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And he goes on to tell us, how we should be living. Redeem the time, for the days are evil. You have a scheduled personal appointment with Jesus. 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And starting in verse 6, he says, "So we are always confident, knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord, for we walk by faith and not by sight." We are confident, yes, well pleased rather, to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Therefore we make it our aim, whether present or absent, to be well pleasing to him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive the things done in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad. That's a bit sobering, that, isn't it? For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive the things that we did in the body. Things that who did in the body? Things we did in this body. We must appear before him, that each one may receive the things done in the body, according to what he has done, whether good or bad. Remember that verse in 1 Corinthians 3 where it says that we'll be tested by fire. Each one's work. I'm not talking salvation here, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about your salvation being tested. It tells us that the works that we did in the body, what we did with that salvation, what did we do with the talent that he gave us? That's what we need to answer for. But you know, this verse that Paul wrote to Timothy at the end of his life, you know, it brings me to tears sometime when I really think about the meaning behind it. And I just imagine Paul, after having run his race, and he's looking back on his life, and he would have been, you know, looking back and looking to see what value was in his life. Did his life have significance? Did it have value? And this is what he says to Timothy, because he's leaving Timothy behind. Timothy's a lot younger, and he's starting out on this evangelistic journey, and Paul's leaving him behind. And this is what he says to him. But you be watchful in all things. Endure afflictions. Do the work of an evangelist. Fulfill your ministry. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I've kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Paul knows that there's rewards, and he'll have to stand there on that day, and he's expecting a crown of righteousness. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. Can we say that at the end of our days? I hope I can. And I hope you can too. And I just pray, Lord, for every one of us, that you would give us the vision, give us the heart, stir us up, Lord, to seek the things that have eternal significance and eternal value.